And we're back. Welcome back to Screenfish Radio. I am genuinely excited to talk about Robbie Williams's Better Man. And we are not monkeying around with this podcast. We have two phenomenal guests who were just with us for the Movie Moments podcast, Victor Stiff and Dave Voigt. Thank you guys for sticking around.
Feels like we never left.
It's almost like it was just moments ago. The mystery of media, as it is. Better Man was directed by Michael Gracey and tells the story of the wild rise, fall, and rebirth of British pop superstar Robbie Williams. From a young age, Williams was determined to leave his mark on the music industry. After making it big as a member of the boy band Take That, Williams embarks on his own incredible solo career. However, fame has its trappings, and Williams must fight through the demons of his past. Also, he's portrayed as a chimpanzee. As always, this podcast is rated S for spoilers. Gentlemen, I would love to hear your opinion on this because Better Man has gone into the dustbin of pop culture zeitgeist, in terms of box office. I would love to hear what you thought of it. Victor, let's start with you because you just saw the film.
Yeah, we had previously recorded an episode on our favorite movie moments, and one of the ones I wish I could have gotten in the last episode was one of my favorite movie moments of the last year was when the credits for this movie hit and I could walk out of the theater because I dislike this movie passionately.
Oh no.
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil the next episode.
Okay, why? What is it that you hated so much about it?
Everything. I hate that it exists. It takes a lot for me to dislike a movie so much. I'm at the point where I'm just tired of musical biopics, of biopics in general. They have such a standard template. They hit all the same beats. They're just not very exciting. Sometimes one slips in. Like I really love Rocket Man. That kind of brought a little bit of a different spin to the genre. This is a just rote biopic, with the exception of the superimposed as CGI chimp for Robbie Williams. I just feel like it's just showing you beats from his life, but there's no emotional build up. They don't mean anything. The characters don't feel like people. He's in a boy band, and you see the other characters and Take That, and it's just like stock characters who just come in and out of the movie and then they're gone. Like I don't feel like this film took me on an emotional journey. It felt more like a peep show where I was seeing scenes from his life. On top of that, I thought it was ugly. I didn't like the musical numbers. Just everything about this movie did not work for me.
Wow. Okay. So now we know why I wasn't in your movie moments for the year. I'm genuinely, I want to talk about this, but Dave, let's hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, I absolutely loved it, but I mean, I think I loved it for the reasons that Victor hated it because, yeah, it does follow the same hollow beats, and I mean, I think that's unavoidable when it comes to the genre of the musical biopic. But I mean, using the insert of the monkey, and even with Robbie's sort of own sense of humor about his own life, to me, that was kind of the point. To me, this was like, listen, my life has been fucking ridiculous, but I got to have some fun. And that's what I did with this movie. I had fun. It was not something that made me care about him or any of them, but I genuinely appreciated sort of the absurdity of the ride, which really to me is probably a very good encapsulation of becoming famous, becoming a pop star. Because I mean, I don't think there's any way to sort of logically explain sort of the rise and fall of people who become famous. None of it makes sense, and I mean, none of it really is supposed to. I think this movie was really smart in trying to give us the absurdist angle of it all, rather than trying to play it overtly straight.
Now, Victor, you brought up Rocket Man. I actually felt this was very similar to Rocket Man, but what was the difference there for you?
The emotional beats in Rocket Man feel earned. You have a sense of who this is, what makes him so talented, and you're along with him for the journey as he ascends to superstar status. I feel like in this film, you never really get a sense of like what makes him so talented, why he breaks out, how famous he is. You just kind of, you're these different, you're notching off these moments in his career, but I don't feel like it ever builds to that. Like I didn't, in real life, I know who Robbie Williams is. I remember him and Take That, but I don't think the film conveys what made him special and how he got to the point where he was headlining the biggest concert in history. It just seemed like things that unfolded instead of, the film worked towards kind of convincing you why it's happening.
See, I can see that. And this was actually the thing that I felt. This is what I liked about the movie is that even though it has those beats, I was intrigued. I actually think the difference for me, and this sounds so bizarre to say, I think the difference for me was the fact he's a chimpanzee. I think the fact that he's shown as a chimpanzee gives me real question into what adds another layer to the scenes for me that moves beyond the beats. But I see what you're saying. Like you could claim that it feels like a greatest hits of all the musical biopics we've gotten. But I felt pretty emotionally invested, especially the storyline with his father. I thought was beautifully told. But again, I hear what you're saying. Um,
And
how
I
go
agree with
ahead.
that too. From a character standpoint, this is an incredibly thin movie. I mean, I think that's probably going to be kind in many perspectives, but again, it just to me it goes back to embracing the absurdity of the spectacle,
Yeah.
which to me this is what that was. I mean, I kind of didn't. I mean, and I think this kind of fits that this is the guy who did Greatest Showman, a movie I was not in love with, but I know people loved. This to me was sort of a different evolution of Greatest Showman because again it leaned into sort of the absurdity of the music and the beats and just all of it. Like I mean, I don't think half of the musical numbers in Better Man would have worked if he hadn't have been a chimpanzee. You know what I mean? It needed to go. It needed to lean into the absurdity of the rock star life in order to work, and I think that's what it does very well.
See, I thought the scenes that were the most choreographed ones. I actually thought, like, I know Victor, you said you didn't like them, and Dave, I know you didn't love The Greatest Showman, but I thought like some of those scenes they were really fascinating to watch. I thought myself. I thought the scene on Regent, I think it's Regent Street, and the scene on the boat with his love interest. I forget what her name is.
Oh, they're technically very impressive, but they were hollow. I mean, to me, the one or the one of the few scenes that really had sort of an emotional depth to it was, I mean, even him at Nebworth and just sort of seeing himself in the crowd and sort of him fighting his own demons as he's singing and almost in this sort of post-apocalyptic way as he's imagining himself tearing himself apart while performing from in front of all these people. It wasn't a happy moment, it was almost a stressful moment, but he it was one that he was determined to overcome.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I would love to know from you both, and I know we're not talking about this film, but how this compares in your mind to a film like A Complete Unknown, then, because I know Victor, you didn't like this one, but that's another like it feels like we get a musical biopic every year about this time right now with the Oscars looming. But how does a film like that, in your mind, for both of you, compare to this?
Well, I mean, Better Man is more of a movie music, at least to me, it's more of a movie musical. And I do agree with Victor. Like Rocket Man was probably the one hybrid that we've gotten of the two that tried to be a bit of both. Whereas Complete Unknown was more of a straight biopic as opposed to sort of hitting us with the beats of musical numbers again and again and again.
Yeah, it was a character study with musical numbers in it, but it's not a musical on par with what you get out of Better Man.
See, I felt like, I mean, you said it was a character study. I felt this gave me more insight into the mind of Robbie Williams than that gave me into the mindset of Bob Dylan, which I mean, the movie's called A Complete Unknown. But I came out when I came out of that one, I thought that was good. Technically, it was good, but I didn't care any more or less about him than I did going in. I'm not a huge Dylan fan. I like Dylan's music. I don't, I'm not hating on Dylan at all. But I came out of it and I went, okay. Like,
I mean, pretty much every film, you can break it down into two categories. Is the character chasing after something or are they running from something? And I felt like Better Man is just a guy running in place. He's not really covering any ground. He's just behaving a certain way till the film needs him to be somewhere else in his life, and then he turns that corner. I never really felt like it dug into like what was driving him and how he turned his life around. I feel like he just turned his life around because there's 20 minutes left in the movie.
And
as one does.
ironically, that almost mirrors Robbie Williams' life, because I mean, he's a sarcastic shit disturber. And I mean, he had this moment where he realized he needs to stop drinking and doing drugs, but he can still be a sarcastic shit disturber.
Well, I mean, it ends with him telling the audience to F off. So
Yeah.
that's
Felt the same way when you said it, trust me.
Whereas the Dylan movie, I mean, it's not my favorite of the year either, but I have to sort of give credence to not just what Chalamet was doing in not sort of doing this overt, flashy mimicry of Dylan and really trying to sort of give us a quiet interpretation of who the man was, but also with the players around him, like with Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez and Ed Norton as Woody Guthrie, who really, I mean, I don't want to say underrated because some of them were also nominated for awards, but they aren't the performances you expect to pull out of a moment like A Complete Unknown, because Chalamet obviously as Dylan takes up a lot of the air in the room. Whereas Better Man, if you don't expect Robbie Williams to take up all the air in the room, you're probably in the wrong place.
That's an interesting comment, to take up all the air in the room, because I mean that's what it is, right? This is his story, his way, his voice. Um, but
I
if
mean,
so,
his story, his way, his voice is that my story is fucking ridiculous. Here
yeah.
you go.
See, and that's what I thought. That's why I thought the monkey, or if you will, the monkey aspect of it was so fascinating because there are so
Agreed.
many ways. Sorry, what was that?
I don't know, just that I 100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually thought that's what made it interesting. Like if we had gone in there and it was just somebody playing a young Robbie Williams, I would have felt exactly, I think, like Victor did, because I think I would have just said that was, the music was nice, but the movie was flat. But there's so much pageantry in this movie. Even him driving the car, when he's freaking out, I thought that scene was wild. Like there's so much of this where the film just leans into everything's nuts. I would even argue, Victor, you say you don't know how he got there. I would even say that this is what the film is saying. Like he doesn't know. These are chapters in his life, and he wanted to be big, and then he got there, and he didn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah, but I mean, that might be how real life works, but real life and film are two different things, right? And film is about drama, which comes from conflict. So you have to know what the tension is, and then someone has to, in some way, overcome that conflict, right? I just feel like the film just flipped a switch and the conflict was over. So it just left me feeling like unsatisfied with it. Like, sure, you can recreate the beats from someone's life, but you want to stitch together the most interesting and the most profound moments. And if this doesn't all coalesce, you want to throw in a little bit of narrative creativity just to make it really sing.
And if anything, with Robbie Williams' life, the conflict was internal. There was no sort of external force. It was him having to come to this moment where he could just flip the switch. Which, if you don't sort of, to Victor's point, sort of creatively massage that into a way that could be a little more visually entertaining, I can see where Victor's coming from, to be like, oh yeah, that okay, then that just happened, and then we're done.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, this is a film I should love. I love films about uh, artists or geniuses at work. Seeing a genius like take shape and learn to hone their craft I love films about imposter syndrome and insecurity and how even like people we admire struggle to be taken to take themselves seriously. And I do appreciate the way the film literalizes that by making him a dancing monkey and how he sees, the monkeys in the crowd who wants to tear him apart. But I don't know. I felt like it's just very superficial kind of way of attacking. Like they're so close to like really digging into something deep, and I think it's just kind of like hopping along the surface. I don't think it fully gets there.
Interesting. Now, did you feel that about Greatest Showman? Like, is this a Michael Gracie thing?
I have not seen Greatest Showman.
See, I think it could be a Michael Gracie thing. I think this definitely could be sort of a very sort of stylistic, superficial way to sort of skip along the pond and just give people sort of put the smile on their face rather than trying to sort of dig into something deeper and more meaningful. I think that's absolutely possible.
See, that's interesting. Okay, so now I really want to see you. I want you to see Greatest Showman, Victor. But
Not if it's like this.
I said this was Greatest Showman's R-rated older brother. Like Greatest Showman is, I mean, it's a Disney film. That's what it is, and um, but I actually felt that was less willing to go into the corners. Not that this film was particularly profound, but I thought there were some really emotional moments, like that the final scene where he's singing with his dad, because to me that was the emotional core of the film. It was how that brokenness with his father drove him in all the other moments was what I saw. And to me that was the emotional climax that did resolve the um, uh, main issue, if you will. Greatest Showman doesn't quite have that. It's more it's a just fun. It's fun. But it misses out sometimes in sitting with the corners. But that's what I liked about Better Man. I mean, I thought that there were moments where I love the film. I love films that use music rather than not perform music, rather than explain music. And that's what I liked about this one. I mean, you can disagree with me on that, but that's like, I mean, that to me was the big problem with a film like Bohemian Rhapsody, which was like, hey, we will rock you. You know what we should do? We should stomp our feet and clap. And if we stomp our feet and clap, then we can do this thing. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, you got an idea from writing on a napkin of how to write this and that, and that was the empty part. Like, but this film, I thought, uses his music in the moment. That's why it reminded me of Rocket Man. Like the Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting scene tells you all you need to know about what's going on in his life, even though that song was written way after that moment in his life.
But I think with Rocket Man, the conceit is he's in like was it rehab or like counseling? He's sitting in a circle or AA with all these people, and he is Elton John as we know and love him, and he has a crazy costume and glitter and a headpiece. And as the film's going on, and you get to know him more through the story unfolding, in real time, you're seeing him literally take off the layers and go from the person we see on stage to Elton John, the human being, right? And you feel that journey. You feel him evolving as a person as he kind of takes the sheen off of his glitzy persona. I just felt like we were watching like a gong show here. It's just one crazy thing to the next. It's entertaining, but I just didn't find it emotionally gratifying.
But it also goes back just to sort of the reality of who these guys are as artists. Elton started off his career with like the Honky Chateau and the Tumbleweed Connection and being this sort of troubadour and playing the piano and being this really sort of respected guy coming up on the scene and somebody who could play multiple styles and do this and do that and really was this multi-dimensional virtuoso before he sort of amped it up to 11 because of the circumstance or the drugs or the what have you. Whereas as Better Man, we're kind of starting the movie with him in the duck costume. We're sort of having to embrace that. Yeah, this has been hollow from day one, and this guy is trying to find his angels. He's trying to find his moment where he can be a little bit more than what he probably knows he just is. And to me, it was just one of those things where, and I mean, it goes back to sort of another problem that we've been having with sort of the musical biopic, quote unquote, where so many of these films, and I mean, I think of the Bob Marley one most recently, where it's designed to get people to go, oh yeah, Bob Marley, I haven't listened to him in a while. Apple
Yeah.
Music, Spotify, click.
Yeah,
This
I
has
mean,
the same problem.
yeah, we're
At
not
least
going
with
to
Better
get.
Man, it was like, fuck it, we're just doing it. Just let's go with it.
I respect the movie for that because when you get an authorized biopic, you're not going to get the most interesting version of a story, right?
Of
You're going to get
course. Yeah,
something
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so clean and polished. This at least was willing to embrace some of his darkness and say, "Hey, I'm an asshole. You know, like take it or leave it. This is who I am, and this is how I behaved." Whereas, 90% of the time they're going to kind of really like not show you the worst parts of him and just kind of say, yeah, this guy's struggling and keep it pretty vague. I do appreciate how the film really dug into what a piece of crap he was and how he treated the people around him.
And we are conditionally sort of pre-programmed to sort of think as the musical biopic to be this sort of really introspective look at an artist, whereas Better Man was like, nope, I'm just a piece of fluff, and I had a real great well, I had a real wild ride, making a shit ton of money and spending a shit ton of money and doing drugs and all this other stuff. Thank God I survived. Here
Yeah,
you go.
and at least I'm honest about it, unlike everyone else who
Yeah,
takes himself too seriously.
Well, absolutely. Well, okay, so here's a question then. Do you feel, well, I mean, maybe we've already answered this, but do you feel he evolves at all in this film, or is it just like you said, it's sort of moments in his life, or is it, is there any growth in him if he's just like, man, I suck and here I am.
yes, but I think it's just more of the maturity of going, you know, those moments that we all have, going like, God damn, I'm not 25 anymore. I can't do that shit.
He changes, but I wouldn't say he evolves,
Yeah,
right? That's the
that's
thing.
that's that's a good way to describe it.
That is okay. Can I expound on that? Because I think that is a great way to describe it, but I'd love to know more about what you mean.
I mean, evolution is about growth and change and self-awareness.
Hmm.
He changes, but you don't see him grow. Again, it's like when the movie needs him to be a better person, he's a better person. He forgives his father, he makes peace, they get up on stage and do a duet. I don't feel like, we really got a good sense of what got him to the place where he could do that. I just feel like the film kind of fast-tracked the last half hour to get us to where it needed to be. So he's not the same Robbie who starts the film, but he's the Robbie we all know in real life by the time the film ends, but I don't think the film does the best job taking him on that journey.
Yeah, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, I think
We don't
uh
get Robbie as a character; we get him as a caricature.
Yeah.
you think he's a caricature? I mean, he's so invested in this. Like, is he just caricaturing himself?
I think so. I thought honestly, I think to a certain degree, yes.
Hmm.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think him like choosing to have himself portrayed as the monkey, as the ape, is like in 8 Mile when Eminem is in a rap battle and he starts talking trash about himself before the other guy can get to it, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of
exactly. That
yeah,
that's
it's
a
like
really good. That's a very
yeah,
good
it's a
example.
defensive choice there. It's like I'm gonna call out all my flaws before you get a chance to.
I remember back in the 90s, when U2 was going through doing their wild stuff, and I remember, if you're younger, if you're a certain age, U2 was a band. U2 did the Pop Mart
That we
tour.
got on CDs, put into
That's right.
games, and
We listened to them on the radio. Um, but they did this thing that called a Pop Mart tour, and it was the biggest, most gaudy set you've ever seen. Their back screen was a drive-in movie screen. They came out of a giant mirror ball lemon for the encore. Like, it was just wild. And I remember talking to a friend of mine. I love you too. I love you too. But I loved you too. And and I said to him, I'm like, what are they doing? And his comment I've never forgotten was quite simply, if you're writing something incredibly personal and you don't want people to focus on it, the best thing you can do is deflect them with a circus act.
mm,
And see that I actually wonder if that's what's going on here. Like, I mean, I don't think it's him just being glib. I think he's putting on a show because he is being so painfully honest. Maybe that would be my read on it.
Yeah, I think that's probably fairly accurate. It's the defense mechanism of turning the glib up to 11 so people don't really see the pain that I was in while I tell you my story.
That's kind of what I wondered.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, it's so nuts. Like this movie is nuts. Um, but I did, and I wondered that, like the some of the things, if he's being honest, like he even when, like, okay, I don't want to say when he was big. I know he's still been recording music, but like in the late '90s, early 2000s, when he was a force, um, he had this. He's always had this sort of tongue in cheek, like keep people at a distance thing
Well, it's a
about
public
himself.
persona, yeah.
I heard that he and Michael Gracie originally they were trying to decide what animal he would be, and he wanted a lion, and they told him no. They said, "You're not a lion."
Yeah,
He was a
not the year
monkey.
Mufasa comes out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, there was a Planet of the Apes movie this year as well.
That was back in May.
Yeah.
Right. No one remembers. Um, but it did get nominated. They both got nominated for Oscars for best visual effects. Um,
Well deserved.
that's not what you said at the beginning.
Oh, sorry. Better Man got nominated for
Yes,
special
it did. They
effects?
both
Visual
did.
effects, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the work on the ape is great. I just felt like when they were having the musical numbers, it felt like when you're watching really bad Star Wars TV and they're just running in front of the volume and it just doesn't feel grounded in reality on any level. I felt like like that. Like I was watching almost a video game instead of like a well choreographed musical number.
So you felt the monkey dancing down Regent Street wasn't grounded enough in reality for you? Is that?
The monkey was the best looking part. Like even the
Oh,
people, the
okay.
lighting, the backgrounds, it looked yeah, it just looked flat and unreal. Like I it just couldn't get into it.
That's totally fair. Totally fair.
I will caveat all my hatred for this film with I've had a screener for this film for like 2 or 3 months until January. I didn't get around to watching it. I lost the screener portal. You asked me if I could come on to talk about the show, and the only day I had to go see this film was the coldest day in Toronto in 5 years. Coldest day since 2019. I had to dress up like a ninja to go see this movie, and when this movie did not grab me right away, like half of the hatred could be that I had to like leave my home and go back to my home in
That
this
is very
weather.
valid. That's a valid point.
Yeah, like I just sat there and I folded my arms and I was like, impress me. So I don't know. Maybe if I had seen this a week earlier, I might all be on another page with you guys.
I love that you sat there and ironically said, "Let me or entertain me." I love the irony of that. It's fair. I will say this. I will say this honestly. I always appreciate with a podcast like this having guests who will say who come on. You know, if they haven't seen the film, like I always appreciate when people go see it. So I appreciate you going to see it. Dave and I had already seen it. Um, what I don't understand, and again, like maybe this is just me, I don't understand people that just are adamant, like they won't see it. Like there's no interest in this film. From a box office perspective, it made $1 million in its opening weekend in the U.S. and five in the U.K. In the UK, where he
In
was
all fairness, they've
huge.
been rolling it out. The wide release is this Friday. Well, last Friday by the time you listen to this, but
Yeah, this is the worst
numbers will
time of
pick
year
up a
to,
little bit, but
yeah.
yeah.
This is like the dump months, right? A lot of stuff. You have all the prestige picks getting pushed over after they got their Oscar qualifying windows, but January is like a no man's land for film. You're not
And I do
gonna.
think Paramount was hoping that this may get a bit more traction on that front, a la, The Wicked or a Rocket Man or that kind of thing, but it never latched on. So
I actually wondered if this will pick like Greatest Showman made money eventually. Like it did, it became quite a box office
oh, it
hit.
took a while. That's true.
It
Yeah.
took a while, but it didn't start as flatly as this. It'll be interesting to see if in 6 months the TikTok crowd pick up on it. You never know, but
Oh yeah, once it hits Netflix or something, like, people, yeah, I could see it totally being meme worthy.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, well, gentlemen, I love chatting with you both. I always do. I really appreciate it. Um, why don't we screen it or skip it? And be honest. Better man, screen it or skip it.
There's better things to do. Skip it.
I will say screen it, but go in understanding that it is absolute popcorn. It is fluff. It is pure spectacle. It is all sauce, no steak. And if you want and that, sometimes that's fine.
Wow. See, this is great because we're all in different places. I love the film. And I think it's a screen it. I actually really want it to be a screen it because even if you don't like it, I want people to see it. I think it's a very likable film myself, but you can disagree. I'm just more amazed at the people seem proud of the fact that they haven't seen it, and I don't really understand that argument. I've talked to some people and they said, "Why would I ever want?" I'm like, "Oh, okay," uh, but it's
Why would I ever
interesting.
want to watch The English Patient? Why would I ever want to watch Titanic? It's just people being contrarian, you know?
But the interesting thing is, it's not about the monkey; it's about him. They say, "Well, I don't know his music, so I'm not interested." I said, "But okay, like, yeah, I just don't understand that."
I know when this came out at TIFF last September, I got so much publicity for the film. I know there was doing all kinds of promo events and pre-TIFF screenings, and there's like parties for it. So I know they were giving it a big push early on. So I'm surprised that it seems like they were banking on it doing quite well.
Well, I mean, I think Robbie Williams is almost in sort of the negative way falling into an almost Taylor Swift category, where a lot of people don't want to admit they're Taylor Swift fans until they go, "Oh wait, I like that song. Oh, I like
Yeah,
that song. Oh, I like that song.
good
I
point.
like that song too." It's like, "Oh shit, I'm a Robbie Williams fan."
I would just like to point out that you compared Monkey Robbie Williams to Taylor Swift. And Swifties, you can find Dave
On
Voigt
very polar opposites,
on.
but yes.
You can find him in the seats.
No, no, totally. Hate mail my way. It's fine. I'm used to it. Nobody
Yeah,
likes me. It's
it's
cool.
just another Wednesday.
It's just another Wednesday.
Movie critic getting hate from people, sure.
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, let's face facts. If we all like the same movies at the exact same time for all the same reasons, wouldn't what we do be boring as all hell?
It's true.
Excellent point. It's
It's a
all
great.
about perspective, right?
I love that, and I appreciate you both. So sell your wares. How can people find you and find your stuff? Let's start with you, Victor. Let's start with you.
You can find me on social media at Victor J. Stiff. And we have Dave and I, we have the TFCA gala coming out. We're going to have the big awards announcements coming out next month. So definitely check for that.
Supporting Canadian cinema in all ways, shapes, and forms. No, that is absolutely a beautiful thing. I'm proud to be a part of that. Going forward, unquestionably, but also, as always, you can find me over in the seats in the seats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the movie image at large, and also as your host and producer of your favorite podcast, aside from this one, of course. In the Seats with, where I sit down with a wide ranging variety of industry professionals all across the board, from cinematographers to production designers to stars of Russ Meyer movies from back in the 60s to we try to mix it up with as wide range of guests as humanly possible. And I know the output's been a little uneven in the past couple of months, but I burn out too. Yeah, I've done almost 700 episodes, so give me a break. More are coming though. More are coming.
You're getting so defensive, and no one's.
Just to show for Dave, he is the hardest working person on the Toronto film scene in the seats and his podcast. If something's being released, he's covering it. If you're a movie fan, do yourself a service and check out everything he does. This guy's been doing it as well as anyone for the last 20 years. Please do check him out.
Well, thank you, Victor. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I am amazed at what is going on. He'll talk to me about it, Victor, and I'll say like, oh, he'll say, oh, there's 10 movies coming out, and I'll say, I know two. Well, you need to know the other eight. and it'll be films from all over the world that are dropping right now. He knows what's going on.
There was one time I like Instagrammed or Facebook a picture of a famous Toronto landmark, and he hit me up right away. He's like, "Was there a screening there?" Like he was so aghast that he might have missed one. So yeah, yeah, he's like Batman monitoring the crime scene. Except for like Toronto movies, you can't get one by Dave. So
Well, and
definitely.
here's the sad reality of it. Back when there were 400 movies coming out a year, I could. Now that there's like 8 or 900, thanks to all the streaming services and everything else, it is impossible. But I try. I try.
I like the image of there being an in the seats symbol that gets shot up into the sky, and Dave is, sitting there waiting
What is
for
the
it.
day that's going to happen? Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably from a theater. It's one of those
Look out that
theater
window, like, I got
from a
no.
Cineplex.
Cineplex.
Yeah, the top of Scotiabank Theater, the top of the escalator just shines a light.
Can we get in Dundas? I don't live that far from there. Yeah.
There you go. There it is. And as always, you can continue to find us wherever podcasts are available, where we have lots of interviews with people for filmmakers and actors related to their latest projects. You can find us on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course, you can find our reviews and content at screenfish.net. And of course, we're on Instagram and TikTok as well at Screenfish Online, all of the places. Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, as always. And for you at home, we started the conversation. This was Screenfish.